Mariam Barghouti, thank you so much for being on Buitenhof. You are now in Oslo, going back tomorrow to the Westbank. Do you believe this peace plan can work?
I don't think this peace plan is designed with the intention to work. And again, we keep asking whether this peace plan is going to work, but we didn't explore its feasibility. It's a plan that did not engage Palestinians or include their participation. It's a plan that doesn't even acknowledge the existence of Palestinians, for that matter. As we see, it focuses and highlights on Israeli security and places the United States in a position where it sees itself as the gatekeeper of rights in the region, which is also very dangerous. So I don't know if the plan is going to work, but I do know it's not made with the intention of working for the right reasons. That is justice and human rights.
So if you are pessimistic, what will that mean for the release of the Israeli hostages and also the Palestinians held in prisons in Israel? Do you believe that there could be a movement there?
I think, again, the plan prioritizes the release of the Israeli hostages, which Hamas has agreed on, not just this time, but in previous efforts. But Israel responded with executing Hamas negotiators, for that matter. For Palestinian detainees who have been detained for decades, long before there were Israeli hostages in this war, and nobody really spoke about them. And again, you need to remember that Israel has released Palestinian detainees as part of agreements like we saw in the one last year, and then re-detained them and took them to places that are akin to torture chambers. So again, I don't know how we can equalize between the future of the hostages and Palestinian detainees.
What do you hear from the people in Gaza? Because the pressure is enormous and it's just so dangerous to even walk around there. What do they want?
They want to live. They want the end of the bombs, the end of the engineered starvation campaign, the end of the disregard of their life. We keep putting out these plans and then trying to ask Palestinians, especially those in Gaza, to reflect and process on that. But look how sinister it is. This is a people being bombed to mince meat. Most of them displaced. Children have the highest rate of child amputees in the world as a result of this aggression, this Israeli aggression. And yet we want to ask them, what they think. What they want, what they need is an opportunity to live, to survive. That is the entry of aid that is not used as quid pro quo, as we saw in the peace plan, but that is an enshrined human right.
You live on the other side, on the West Bank, in Ramallah. How's the situation there?
Oh, yeah. It's really bad in the West Bank, and it's escalating at an alarming rate. You're looking at Israeli settlers that are de facto annexing Palestinian lands using lethal force. That includes guns, that includes military power, but it also includes armed Israeli militia groups that have been operating more and more in the West Bank. And at the same time, the Israeli government continues to provide them with immunity. That means they are not held accountable for the crimes committed against Palestinians, while Palestinians are stripped of any capacity to protect themselves against these armed attacks. So the situation we're looking at is another form of ethnic cleansing that doesn't take the shape of bombs and shellings like in Gaza, but it's more of a softer violence that is pushing more and more Palestinians out of their lands.
So you still paint a very bleak picture for the West Bank and for Gaza. Now, what do you think Hamas will do? Are they under pressure of the people in Gaza to release the hostages and maybe there will be a quiet time, the bombardments will stop?
It is a very bleak picture, but your questioning of what will Hamas will do is suggesting that this all hinges on Hamas. It doesn't. Again, Israel has consistently and constantly not just broken agreements and plans, but it has also executed negotiators on the side of Hamas, for that matter. And in the West Bank, where it's ruled by the Palestinian Authority, Israel has consistently and constantly emphasized that they do not want to give Palestinian rights, that they want to continue taking more lands for building this vision of greater Israel. So again, your question, the framing of it misplaces where the real leveraging points are, and that is in the hands of Israel, the occupying power, the power with the guns and the bullets and the bombs.
Right. In less than 45 minutes in the Netherlands, here in Amsterdam, there will be a huge demonstration, the Red Line peace demonstration. Do you think it's still necessary? Is it helping in any way or form?
I think these demonstrations are incredibly important and significant, not just for highlighting the plight of Palestinians and what is happening to them right now in our era, which is genocidal practices, essentially, but it emphasizes where the public stands. In that way, where policymakers may fail and even be complicit in crimes against humanity, the public is emphasizing its point and positionality, not just for the present. It's not just to help in today, but for the future. So Dutch people can say, we were not with this. We did not want to be complicit.
Right. It's not only the Dutch people. 151 states that we know of in the UN, the United Nations, they are rooting for a Palestinian state. Yeah. At the same time, there's nothing about that, or not a lot in the peace plan. And what is happening is the plan of President Trump is that former Prime Minister Tony Blair will be in charge of Gaza. So what do you make of that?
It shows you how they're very much aligned with Israel. The attempt isn't to allow Palestinians to live freely and to have self-determination and right to think for themselves and act for themselves, but it is to always have this external foreign power dictating the way they live. And again, the recognition of a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza has been recognized endlessly. But now we're at a new era where it's not the recognition of a Palestinian state that is on some part of the land that is needed, but it is the nullification of the legitimization of the Israeli state that happened in 1948 under colonial circumstances. So there needs to be a revision of that rather than an attempt to silence and pacify Palestinians now with a so-called symbolic recognition of a state, which in actuality, there is no real engagement with Palestinians on that basis.
Last question. How do you keep on going as a journalist reporting, but also living in this situation on the West Bank?
There's no option but to keep going. So that's really what keeps me going. There are many times where you do question your job and its influence and its impact, especially as a local journalist that is often disregarded by our international peers while we are being mass killed as journalists in Gaza and mass detained as journalists in the West Bank. So amid all that reality, my constant coming back point is there is no other option but to keep going.
Mariam Barghouti, thank you so much for your time today on Buitenhof. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bedankt voor het kijken. Vond je dit een goed gesprek? Vergeet niet te abonneren of te liken. En reageren kan natuurlijk ook in de comments. Oh ja, heb je dit al gezien?
There really is massive rejection of Trumpism on the part of the US public, which is not reflected in Congress, but eventually should matter.